Hello, my fellow gamers, or whoever it is that might be out there. It is I, Dharma, also known as the Entertainer, also known as your Demi-Omni Queen, and welcome. Today I am starting something new. I am doing a YouTube podcast. Now, basically, what I'm going to be talking about in this podcast is pride. More specifically, my pride for the LGBTQIA+ community. Because I have a strong passion for it, and also I've come to learn that I am a part of it. Not sure specifically why I'm a part of it, I'm still figuring that out, but I do know that I am a part of it. So, let's discuss my journey from being Mrs. Straightslot to knowing that I am at least in some capacity sipping that delicious gay tea. So, let's get right into this. So, I venture to say that my first time really hearing of the word gay was one night when I was watching the pretty good show Frasier at dinner with my family. Now, in this particular episode, the main plot was that Frasier's dad, I'm just gonna call him Murray because I can't remember his actual name. Murray, Murray, oh my goodness, I lost my train of thought. Okay, Murray's wife had an old friend who I'm just gonna call Brad. And Brad is coming over after a very, very long time to visit the family and Murray and all of that, and coming and dropping by for like a week or so to say hello and catch up with them, along with any work stuff that he needs to do. So, the whole entire plot throughout the episode is that Murray, for whatever reason, I forget specifically why now, is worried that his two sons, Frasier and Niles, aren't actually his sons, because Brad used to be very close with his wife before they got together. And there is the potential possibility that, for whatever reason, that Murray's kids might not actually be his kids, but Brad's kids. So throughout the whole entire episode, Murray is scrambling around worried, and this worry is only made greater whenever he catches Brad in the act of doing something fatherly towards Frasier or Niles. Whether it be Brad reading to Frasier while he's sick in bed, or, something else of the like. So, when we come back to the very end of the episode, where Murray's saying goodbye to Brad in the elevator, and finally musters up the courage to ask Bradley about his trust in his wife, and how far their friendship had really gone. And Brad replied that he had trusted Murray's wife enough to tell her that he was gay. And so with that, Murray and Bradley say goodbye, and Murray goes back into the apartment full of glee with a smile on his face, knowing that, yes, indeed, Frasier and Niles are his sons. Now, how does this tie back into my story specifically? Well, it ties back into my story because this is the first time, well, I wouldn't say necessarily the first time, I'm sure I've heard of this word before, but this is the first time I heard this word and asked my mom, what does gay mean? Because at the time, I either A, got exposed to it and it just didn't register, or B, I just didn't know the word for it. I can't really tell which, although from what I remember, this was my first time really hearing the word in mainstream and asking about it. And my mom simply said, it's when a guy loves another guy. And so, happy with that answer, we move on. We now skip forward a few years, and we're going to visit one of my mom's old friends. And she is a lesbian. And at the time, we went to visit her with her girlfriend. And we had loads of fun and things like that. And I I even talked not so long ago with my mom about it, and said that it was my first time seeing, quote unquote, seeing lesbians in the wild. She thought that that was very funny. I think it's very funny. I don't mean it in any mean or rude way. That's just how it came out. So, but yeah, so it was my first time really being, quote unquote, up close with, people who are lesbian or gay, however you like to word it. And to be honest, for the majority of that trip, it didn't really affect anything. It was just something new to me, since, like I said before, I had either overlooked any experiences I had with gay people or just forgot about it. So, now we've got to talk about what's been going on in the background throughout both of these stories and any future stories that I'll be adding on throughout this video, and possibly the next, depending on how detailed I get with them. You see, there's a reason why I called myself Mrs. Straits a lot in the beginning of this video, and how I went from that to drinking the gay tea. Well, the thing is for a very long time, I thought it was required to have a crush on a boy. I don't know why, but I just did. And so, you know, whatever boy I had been in contact with, or even just hung out with for that week, I would label as my quote-unquote new crush. Now, what you have to understand about this is there were absolutely no feelings there. And, you know, looking back through all of my crushes, quote-unquote crushes, that I remember very clearly for some reason, I remember that every single one of them that was, so far, that has been on a dude, didn't have any actual feelings to back it up. Something in my mind just simply thought that as a girl, I needed to have a crush on a guy. And that's how I thought for a very long time. In fact, I thought that all the way up until we moved out of Virginia, of which I wouldn't say I no longer hate, that's wrong word, English hard. I wouldn't necessarily say I no longer hang out with guys, but the majority of my guy friends were, and still are, back in Texas, and I have yet to make any more guy friends. So for the most part, there was nobody to quote-unquote crush on, and that was the way it was up till I want to say 1, maybe 2 years ago, where I kind of pieced together the puzzle. But we're going to talk about that later. So this is something important to note, and it's kind of why when I figured out that I wasn't a part of the straight community, why it was such a big deal to me. Because it always felt like it was hammered home, the fact that I needed to be straight for some reason. So, yeah. Moving on from that, coming back to the actual timeline of events, now we move on to the next story, which is about me personally learning more about the LGBTQIA+ community. Now, over the years, I've become more and more engrossed in social media. YouTube, for the most part. I don't really hang out on any other social media platforms at all, because screw that. So as I became more and more engrossed in the YouTube community, I came to learn and see a lot of things. For the most part, it was simply toy reviews, or something about Legos, or something funny humor. But as I became more engrossed into the social media sphere and began learning more and more, I began hearing more about things such as gay or lesbian. And in fact, this was perpetuated further by the fact that I was a fan art geek for a while. Anything that I really, really loved and wanted to see more of without actually playing the video game or watching the show or whatever it was, I would go and I would look up fan art for it. Because, oh my goodness, the people online are so talented. And I would go and I would look at it and I would look for hours on end at all of the fan art and stuff. And this is where I came across more and more the concept of gay and lesbian. Because a big part of the fan art community and just fan communities in general is, of course, the shipping. Or relationshipping, if you just want to make it longer. So, yeah, it was one of those things that really began pulling me into the loop even further, to the point where I sat down and I sat down one day after having gotten a fresh Pinterest account and decided, you know what, I'm gonna look up, I believe one of the first one was transgender comics. I figured, I could learn something, could hear about people's experiences, all sorts of stuff. And this was the first thing that really got me wondering, A, about my gender, obviously. Dear goodness, thunder, go away. A, about my gender, and B, it also began making me wonder about my sexuality / romantic feelings. Because, like I said, for a very long time, all of my boy crushes were fake. So, I began searching deeper and deeper until one day where I had a good cry and had a realization that while I may not be transgender, I'm not straight or cisgender. And I became okay with the fact that I wasn't. I had a good cry, I cried it out, and in my head I figured it out as I am not transgender, but I know that this is not who I am. I had been not necessarily living a lie, but kinda living a lie, especially when it came to my sexuality. And that would come a little later. So some more comic browsing later, seeing gender and transgender and all this different stuff, and pansexual, bisexual and stuff. I was still experimenting around, and I was still learning, and I was learning about flags and what they meant, and I was learning about people's experiences when it came to their sexuality / gender, and I was learning a whole lot from the community. And so, a moment that really stood out to me when it came to learning about my sexuality was the fact that I have this friend, Forest Child, I just call her Forest Child, and she still lives back in Texas, but we do get to FaceTime each other a lot. And one of those days that we FaceTimed, I believe we were playing Roblox, specifically Royal High. It's a hit game on there. We were playing that specifically, and I went to customize my little character avatar, and I decided to put on a bisexual sweater onto my avatar. And that's when I started making bisexual jokes, and this was the first time I had really quote-unquote came out to anybody. At the time, I knew bisexuality wasn't exactly the term for me, since I wasn't exactly sure on what it meant. I knew I liked both girls and guys, I just didn't know to what extent bisexuality meant. And I was fully intending on figuring out what actually fit me later. This was just to kind of get me out there, kind of experiment and see what my friend had to say. and she was completely and utterly fine with it. And she didn't even bat an eye, and I want to thank you for that, Forest Child, because if you would have, I think I would be a little worse for wear at the moment. So yeah, her being the first person I came out to was honestly amazing. I felt good, and later on, just a few days later, I would find that while bisexuality wasn't what I was looking for, pansexuality was it, at least for a very long time. And so, with that, I fully embraced the fact that I wasn't your typical straight girl, you know. I kind of embraced the fact that, all of my guy crushes in the past and such were just total and utter bull crap that I made up to try and convince myself that, you know, of something. I don't really know exactly, but, you know, it was one of those things where it was all fake. And B, I began to take pride in the fact that I was a part of the Pride community, and that's where my journey of both learning about myself, truly, and learning about the Pride community really started. And so now, yet again, some indeterminate amount of time later, I of course, for all of the stuff that I do now, my YouTube channel, this new YouTube podcast, my other podcast, and things like that, all of this stuff has become at least partially Pride branded. Like, for example, my other podcast has my little my little avatar thing on it with a microphone and all that. But the main highlight is the rainbow background, at least to me anyway. And then for my YouTube channel, of course, the little demi-omnisexual pride flag on my character, and then whatever I include for this podcast specifically. I'm not sure yet. I'm recording this before I've made anything for it specifically, so I'm sure you've already seen it already. I haven't, so I hope it looks good. I hope future me does good. So yeah, so it's one of those things where I learned over time. And then, like I said before, with the introduction of my YouTube channel especially, when I first started, with the first video of my YouTube channel, I was still identifying as pansexual, but from that video forward, I identified as demi-omnisexual, and that's because of the fact that I realized, when it comes to omnisexual is just like pansexual, except you do realize someone's gender, and it doesn't affect your decision to love them very much. You just acknowledge that they have a specific gender. And demisexual is when you have to have a prior connection to someone in order to love them. And then, not too long after that, I also identify as a demi-girl, which, demi-gender, demi-boy, demi-girl is basically when you are one gender. Like, for example, being a demi-girl, I identify as a girl, but, you also have a strong connection to another gender, which I personally have a strong connection to, non-binary / agender. I find I have a strong connection to those. And yeah, and currently I'm questioning myself yet again because I'm not really sure if I am demi-omnisexual. I think I'm definitely demi because I don't really look at people and think of them as hot, at least not right out the gate. I have found with my more recent crushes, they have been with people that I've had a prior connection with. So, I definitely think the demi's still there, but there's a possibility I'm a demi-lesbian, or demi-bisexual, or demi-pansexual. I'm pretty sure I'm a demi-girl with an agender / non-binary connection for sure. It just, it feels right, and I have yet to question it since I've put myself under that term. But when it comes to my sexuality / romance feelings, I'm not quite sure where they land just yet. But yeah, so that's basically my story thus far. I'm going to go ahead and cap this off here, because there's plenty more I could talk about, but I think for now that's good. So, if you like me and you want to support me in my future endeavors, then go ahead and check out the links in the YouTube description down below. The first one will be to my podcast called Write What You Want to Read, Draw What You Want to See, where I talk about professional novel writing, digital arts, and I talk about tips, tricks, and what not to do's for both through my many years of experience doing both creative activities. And please do go over there, follow and like, and of course listen. I could really use the peeps if you would not mind. The second link will be to my Redbubble shop, Rainbowrific, where the main highlight is my LGBTQIA+ collection, where I mainly sell pride pins. I have a wide variety, but the most recent ones that I've added are abrosexual, gender fluid, demigender, demigirl, demiboy, demisexual. I've also recently added agender, as well as polysexual. I currently have 3 shirts as well out. I have one for this YouTube channel with my little demon character looking at some late night texts. I also have one for my podcast channel that has I Have Magic Pants written on the front with a little drawing of some trousers. And I have a Love is Love shirt. And the last link will be to my long-awaited course, which is the Secrets to Digital Art with ProCreate course. Please do go check that out. It took a very long time to make, and I really hope you all enjoy it. And yeah, please do like the video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell because I post at least once every weekend. I'm hoping to make this podcast a regular thing in addition to my other videos, but I can't make any promises since I have a very busy life. So, I will see you all later, and on to the next one.